Hey guys, welcome back to another strategy testing video. Today we are going to do a stress test with BOBS 3.0. This is that strategy that made over $33,000 in its original form. It was just highly aggressive way to play and bet. So I dialed that down and I added 58 levels of progression. This is the longest I've added. So we're going to give it a stress test, which just simply means we're going to run this thing into the ground. We're going to run this thing until it busts. Afterwards, we're going to cover a couple things. We're going to talk about pros, cons. I'm going to talk about some recommendations. We're going to analyze the data, and I'm going to break it down how much this is actually making per spin, if it makes sense to use in the casino, and how to use it in the casino. And then I'm going to do and share some data set analysis also on the data set I'm using, real live casino spin data. So keep that in mind as well. So let's go ahead and jump into it and set things up and run the test. And of course, I'll speed it up because it's likely to go, a few thousand spins. We're going to find out. And then again, hold on to the end of the video. We're going to recap and we'll talk and discuss more about this strategy and go from there. All right, so let's get everything all set up. We are going to start a new session. You can see bankroll balance is $2,000 right there, 2,000. And let's go ahead and find the strategy. This is, again, BOBS 3.0 is what I'm calling it. This is 58 levels of progression. And we are using dollar unit sizes for this test. And of course, we're going to bring up our data set. I'm going to load up 7,000 spins. We'll see if it uses it all. If it uses all 7,000 spins, I'll just load up another file. So we're going to see how this one pans out. Get everything all set up right here. We'll start the test again. I'm going to go ahead and speed up the test. And let's start. All right, so that's going to wrap up the test. Again, we started with that $2,000 bankroll, going over some of the stats, right? I want to break a couple things down. First off, profit high, where we maxed out, was $1,759 in profit. The total spin count, right? It took 5,448 spins to finally bust this strategy. That boils down to 32 cents per spin. And I know what you're thinking, that is low. And it is, right? So I stretch this to the exact opposite of the spectrum. What I mean by that is his original version, although very great, it was very, very aggressive, and the bets were just super high. So if you didn't have a massive bankroll, it either went boom or it went bust. So what I did is I stretched this out to the max, right? Putting in 58 levels in the progression, and you can see it did withstand a very long test. That's a ton of spins. There's a couple things I want to go over. I want to talk about some of the pros, some of the cons, and then some recommendations, okay? Because I think this is solid how it's built, but there's specific ways, if you want to play this, how to play this and when to check out. Before I get into the pros and cons, I do want to go over the data set analysis. So I got the same spins. I went in and did an analysis on the numbers. And the way we have this designed, right, we just have it designed to hold on the high side. So just for clarification, the expected win rate, right, covering those 18 number coverage, is going to be 48.65% with a single zero wheel. I run single zeros because that's what I use to play. So that is a 2.7% house edge. So the low numbers on this specific data set came in at 51.9%, slightly higher than the numbers that came in for the high numbers. And the high numbers came in at 48.1%. Here's what I found that was pretty interesting as well. Consecutive hits on the low side, the highest consecutive hits in this analysis was 12 consecutive hits. Consecutive hits on the high side, on the high numbers, the highest it went was 10 consecutive hits. So some of the pros, right? Pros with this is really the ability to endure 5,000 spins, right? That shows resilience to long losing streaks. There was a couple times, right? Because you do have pretty high coverage. You have 50% of the board covered, okay? So it does have some resilience, but it doesn't have that recovery power that we're looking for, right? So this is more of a grinded out play. So the advantage for something like this, if you're going to run a strategy like this, is the advantage would be aim for small wins, right? Because you did see it would get into profit, but it's not going to be one of those get rich overnight ways to play. This is something that you want to take advantage because you'll see it cycle up and down. You want to cash out when it cycles up. So the advantage playing this way would aim for those small consistent wins, those little profit gains. Also, manage your stop loss when you're in a high progression. So the majority of the profit that was made was in the early levels of the progression. So knowing that, if you're higher in the progression and you get a couple hits that gets you back into a profit or near a profit, ideally would be best to reset when you're near a profit versus really going and stretching out and using all 58 levels. So, that's another pro. Another pro would probably be, you could see how many spins it took to finally bust. So it's more of a lower stress betting. Gradual profit instead of chasing like huge losses with aggressive play is really kind of what this one's leaning to. And it just depends on what type of player you are, right? If you like super safe, you don't mind spending some time at the casino, you just want to check out in some kind of profit. If you are more aggressive, you don't want to spend time in the casino, you want to get up and get out and make a lot of money. That's, everyone has different ways to play and how they prefer to play. This one's not for you. That being said, I do think the progression on the high bet, not the inside numbers, but the high bet can be adjusted. And I have a couple good ideas on the sequence and the progression. So we want to find that Goldilocks zone, right? So you guys familiar with Goldilocks and the Three Bears with the soups. We're not looking for a super hot soup. We're not looking for that cold soup. We're looking for something perfect, something warm right there in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run a couple different variations, adjusting the progressions and trying different progressions to see how it'll pan out. And then I'm going to go ahead and run those back, and then I'll share that with you guys as well. I do want to talk about some of the cons. Of course, there's cons to every strategy. This did finally break. It took quite a bit of spins to finally break it. But some of the cons, it's going to require, a larger bankroll if you want to ride it out all 58 levels, right? So you're going to need quite a big bankroll. Another thing is, like I mentioned before, the recovery power. So due to how many progression levels there are in there, you got to keep in mind there's going to be a trade-off. That trade-off is because of the progressions being so long. The recovery power, as you climb, you're going to need to require more hits to get back into a session profit. Okay, so there is a point of diminishing returns once you hit those higher levels in the progression, therefore requiring more wins to catch up back to your session profit. So looking at the test, you've seen it teeter up and down, and when it dipped down, it would get you back into a session high. Now, the bet placement can be adjusted. I always bring this up. You guys can play around with the different adjustments. You guys can come up with some great ideas. You don't have to play all these bets, right? I was playing the splits, I was playing the double streets, the single streets. You don't have to. You can dial that back and just play double streets. I've gotten some feedback from some of you guys that say, hey, it works great just playing double streets or streets, and I'm winning money with it. That's a good adjustment right there, because playing it like this makes it very difficult if you're going to be trying to play it in a brick and mortar casino. But it is a lot easier if you're going to be playing online, right? Because you can just simply rebet, add the next bet position, and then continue to go up in the progression until you hit a new session high. Then you can reset. But even then, there's a timer on these, so you got to keep that in mind. So bet placement would be difficult. Some of the recommendations I have, to be honest, is like, if you want to make it safer, you want to set up a stop loss. I did notice that most of the profit made was fairly early in the progression, right? Most of the profit made was, usually before about the 20, 25 level mark. After that, it was kind of diminishing returns, in the sense that you just required more hits that outweighed the misses for you to come back into a session profit. Also, you can shorten the progression. You don't necessarily need to use all 58 levels if you want to. Knowing most of the profit through this testing was made from that 15 to about 25 levels, you can simply just cycle it, right? Restart. Maybe you're at level 20, 25, and you're like, okay, I'm close to a session profit, but I don't want to keep going down and potentially risking more of a higher bet. Instead, just cycle through, meaning stop right there, start over, take that short temporary loss, and then just let it climb back up. So that's a good option. So I do think this is best played for small profit gains, just to get up, 20, 30, maybe $50, check out. So I think this would probably be best suited for small profit gains. Okay, and then cycle up. When it cycles up, then cash out when that time is right. Also, like I mentioned before, you can choose just one bet to couple with the high side, whether that be double streets. You could do 2 or 3, maybe play a double streets and street, so there's a little bit of overlap, creating that jackpot numbers. So always think about that. Another thing too is, to make this a little bit better, I kept it on one side of the board, right? I could simply have it switch on losses. You could have a safety measure where you're sitting out on losses. Maybe if you get 2 consecutive losses, either switch sides, or if you want to hold your bet on one side, wait till it hits that side of the board again to continue into the progression. Okay, so I know that this one didn't make a ton of profit, but the big key takeaway from this, the big key point, is its resiliency. I have a couple good ideas. I'm going to run some tests. I'm going to break it down by spin. So, because it's not realistic to run this many spins. The only reason we do this stress test is to find that behavior and find that resiliency of that strategy. Knowing the strategy inside and out allows you to make the proper adjustments to fine tune it, because I think the base is solid. This base is good. We can make some small adjustments, and we can run them on the same data set, and to see if those adjustments are making a positive difference. Okay, so I have a couple more videos I want to do on this one specifically, and I'm going to break it down by spin. So like at the 100 spin mark, 2, 3, 4, 500 spin mark, I'm going to stop it and I'm going to show you the profit gain. And also I'm including that extra stat, that stat being how much money does this make per spin, that 32 cents per spin that this made. I think we could get that a lot higher. I think we could push it to at least over $1 a spin, still keeping it safe. We'll run those in an upcoming video, and of course I will share that like I always do. And yeah, that's going to wrap up today's video. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys have any ideas on progressions, I have a ton of different progressions I want to play with. So those testing videos are going to be on the other channel, the Viper Strategies channel. So if you're interested, go ahead and go over there to that channel, like, subscribe. I'm going to be posting those within the next couple days. I'm going to do at least 3 different variations with this one specifically and see if we could fine tune it a little bit better just to get that warm soup, right? Because right now this is on the cold side compared to the original version. Super hot, $33,000 made within 2,500 spin. But the thing was, those bets were so dang high. I will have the original down in the description below too. And let me know what you guys think as usual. And till next time, guys, be cool, stay cool. Peace.